Hi guys, Scrivo here. Welcome to The Black Rage. So this is the first in a series going through Blood Angels. It was my first Space Marines army. Obviously, normally I'm talking about Dark Angels. They came from the first Codex together, Angels of Death. So I consider myself kind of an Angels of Death player these days. Gives me some flexibility. Obviously, the way that Space Marines play at the moment, you can just use them as whatever. But I, like all idiots, have started painting up some red and black armoured guys to go with my black and red armoured guys that have some green guys as well. But yeah, so this show is going to be going through Blood Angels. So we've just had the Codex drop in the army box, obviously without points, so all I can really go through at the moment is what's changed on the data sheets, kind of give you some kind of sort of feel for how that's all kind of developing. Obviously, if you're not a Blood Angels player, being able to see how units have changed is really useful, because if the last time you played Mephiston, suddenly then play him into him post Codex, quite a change. So it's always kind of good to get that heads up. So hopefully this will be the first of many shows. I'm going to try to go through the detachments, probably leave that till the points are out, because I never like doing lists without the like a version of the points, because the ones in the book feel quite different, and so I'm not too sure, because based on how every other book's landed, they end up getting kind of a nice kind of adjustment, whether higher or lower. You never know, right? Like, but we'll see. Right, so let's get started. So, Commander Dante, so Lord Regent of the Imperium Nihilus, so pretty big important dude. Just hung out with my main man Lionel Johnson recently. So he's had a very subtle change to his data sheet. So one of his things, he was called Lord Regent of Imperium Nihilus. They've changed it to Warden. Obviously that's to reflect that there is some law changes going on, that he's in the same half of the Imperium as the Lion. We don't know past the meeting what actually really happens there, but gets quite angry at the fact that Dante's wearing his brother's face. But the stats that have really changed though is the pistol's gone up to strength 9 from strength 8, and Axe Mortalis has gone up to 8 from 7. So other than that, pretty much stays as he is. He's got some cool stuff, like he's got adding on to advance and charge rolls, and +1 to hit rolls in melee. So if you're giving him a unit of Vanguard Vets, Sangard, even Intercessors with Assault Intercessors with jump packs, he adds something really spicy, and it's nice. And I do like he's got one of my favourite sort of abilities, which is the 6-inch at the start of the fight phase, battle shot test at -1 into the unit you've charged, which is really, really useful to stop defensive strats. So things like Armor Contempt, or the big one, especially if you're playing against Blood Angels, is like, oh look, you're now not able to fight on death in certain detachments. Obviously, that might have changed a little bit, but yeah, it's quite exciting. I like him as a unit. Beautiful model. I know a lot of people aren't a fan of the wings on his backpack, because opinions and all that, right? But yeah, nice. It's a nice start. I feel it's nice that you look at him and go, yeah, I will use him. So it's pretty solid. Then we've got the Sanguinor. He is basically the same. The only real change is he's on a bigger base. So currently he gets shipped with the resin model, actually gets shipped with a 25mm slotter base. I think most people play him on a 32. The new model is on at least a 40, if not a 50. I still haven't figured that one out, but that will just change how you can use him, because obviously at the moment, if you've got him on a small base, if you're dropping him in as a reaction to a start of combat, it's really cool, but often those little pesky spaces where people feel like they've kind of kept themselves safe, it's not safe from him. So yeah, all the stuff like him dropping in, it's still there, very much the same. Like, to me, this data sheet feels like if it's not broken, don't try to fix it. The only thing is maybe the points will be kind of adjusted, because it might be slightly more useful in, say, one of the detachments has an ability that you can pick up units. So yeah, he's got the jump pack keyword, so he could be uppy downy. Oh, very spicy. Right, So this is the big one. Chief Librarian Mephiston. He's so big a change that's actually 2 slides for this one. So he's lost leader, which, to be honest, I saw people trying it. It wasn't inspiring, but instead he's gained lone operative, which from a narrative standpoint makes much more sense. Because yes, he is a leadership character. He's kind of important in the chapter, but he is this dwelling, grumpy, kind of emo guy in the corner going, mumbling, with a really gothy voice. So it makes sense. His Feel No Pain has improved to a 4+, which is really nice. And then on his sword, which is a psychic sword, Vitaros, has gained lethal hits, which it's okay. It's not the most exciting thing to be given onto a weapon, but at the same time, when you're playing Space Marines and you could potentially be throwing them into your oath target, why not, right? Like, it's not the end of the world. And then the Quickening gives him Advance and Charge, which is pretty beastly. You want Advance and Charge on some sort of melee beat stick, where he has 6 attacks, strength 9, AP -3, D3 damage. It's pretty good. And then his Feel No Pain was just against Psychic. It's now just Feel No Pain against everything, which I think is really nice. And then Transfixing Gaze is a 6-inch aura of a leadership test. Otherwise, you cannot fall back. So forcing your opponent to stay stationary is always good. So I always find having these sorts of tools where you can stop your opponent doing what they need to do, especially if they've got a secondary where they go, well, that's all right, I'll just fall these guys back, and because they're battle line and this mission says I can do this, I can. And it's like, no, they're not leaving, they're stuck with me, and I fight first if it's your turn, unless you've got fight first, and even then I still fight first. So it's just like, okay, this does not feel fine. So I think he's a character we're going to see a bit more of. The index version of him did feel a little bit underwhelming. Making him a lone op, I think, gives him a purpose, because there was often the choice of, do you take him or do you take a sanguinary priest or any no-name character that gives some sort of a buff, and it was often the choice you didn't take him, which was a shame. Right, let's go on. Asterath the Grim. So he's lost his bolt pistol, which I'm guessing it's because the new model doesn't have one modelled on it, because they're often that particular about these sorts of changes. The Executioner's Axe has gained Strength 7. It's got Precision, which I really don't mind. And his Massive Doom, which was his, you could once per game charge his unit gains dev wounds, is now just when they charge, which I think is really, really scary, because there is one of the detachments that allows you to fall back, shoot, and charge, or fall back and charge. Yeah, so it's very much like you can just keep going, right, I tag you, hit that, new to that unit, I'll then fall back, charge something else, and that unit that I've left kind of almost dead, my guns will shoot. Something like that, you know, or something that's not quite so hard hitting can go and finish it off. So there is those choices there, and I think it's really scary. Really scary. Right, Lamartes. Apart from having a glow up of a model, his bolt pistol became an Absolver bolt pistol, so slightly better, but all of his abilities have stayed the same. So this was a big concern I had when I was first using Blood Angels at the beginning of the year, that this whole thing where he gives a unit -1 damage is really, really good, and it's the sort of thing that if you're not careful, people moan about it enough and then it disappears and you're like, oh, that was really useful. So I'm kind of glad. He's gonna need to be pointed correctly, I suppose. The unit he's now leading won't be the same, because obviously we've now got the Primaris version, or the Tacticus version of Death Company, full stop. So I think it'll be interesting to see how the points shake out for him, but still, I still feel there's a choice of him over a normal chaplain, because -1 damage is not to be sniffed at. It's very helpful, very helpful indeed. Right, so first of the new data sheets. So Blood Angels Captain. So the biggest change to this, in fact the only change, is essentially by making a Blood Angels Captain, you gain access to the Inferno Pistol and, for whatever reason, a relic weapon. It's very much in line with their new kit that's been given to them. What's interesting is let me just quickly check, but I don't think there's a whole thing about only taking them. So I think this will get corrected. Yeah, so at the moment, there's nothing saying you can't take 3 Blood Angels captains and 3 Space Marine captains. Obviously, we saw it happen with Black Templars. They eventually corrected that. I think that'll happen. I don't necessarily think you'd want to, but it's there. Next one is the Death Company captain. So this is interesting. So traditionally, you'd had during the index, you'd have to have chaplains leading stuff, or maybe a sang priest at a time, but not Death Company. What's interesting is they've added all the war gear so that he's got the Inferno pistol like the other one. He now has, if he's leading a unit, well, he now has, the sheet now is, if he's leading a unit, unless they start the battle embarked in a transport, the unit gains Scout 6-inch. So in an army that just wants to shove itself down your throat, having a little scout move is a bit cheeky. Especially when you're playing one of those sort of heavier boards with a massive big Super L like a UKTC board, where you go, right, there's that lovely patch kind of outside of my deployment. I can just go onto that. That'll do the job. They've gained Black Rage, which is reroll melee hits, so basically the Death Company rule, and they only have OC and can fall back if they're within 12 inches of a chaplain. So completely fair. I think it would be abused otherwise. People would take characters and just be like, right, just going to use them as a bully piece. And then this is the fun bit. They get the Death Visions of Sanguinius. So on death, you roll, and it is a d6, adding 2 if the attacking unit containing the enemy warlord does the deed. So on a 2 to a 3, the enemy suffers d3. On a 4 to 5, it's 3. On a 6 plus, it's d3 plus 3. So up to 6 mortal wounds as you go down. So you could do that, and then fight on death. Not to be sniffed at, but at the same time, if you're in that situation, at least you're taking someone down with you, hopefully. But we'll see. I think it's interesting, at least. And then we've got the Death Company version. So the jump pack one gains, whilst they're leading, gains sustained hits 1. So very much feels like the Foot Death Company of old, and it's quite nice. So Black Rage again, so reroll melee hits, and then can only fall back, and only has OC if they're within 12 of a chaplain. And then the Death Visions, they have the Death Visions. So I think this is going to be an interesting one. A way of sneaking in some extra mortal wounds is nothing to be sniffed at either. And I'm going to say sniffed at a lot because apparently I'm thinking of Mephiston's figure. And it's just like, that's all I'm thinking of. Yeah, so nothing too surprising there. And then we have the big change. This is the one that I thought was quite interesting. Sanguinary Priest. So, gone the Primaris route. So, gain the Absolver Bolt Pistol, which is AP 1, damage 2. That's the big change from it being just a normal bolt pistol. The ballistic skill and weapon skill have worsened to just a 3 up from a 2 up. Not too surprised because they are not captain level. I know they are quite important in the chapter, but you've got to show some sort of point of difference. There is no data sheet with the jump pack now as well, which means it's attaching to very different units, but that's fine. And then there's a slight change to what they can lead. So they can now lead Desolation squads, Hellblaster squads, Inferno squads, Intercessor squads, and they lost Vanguard vets. Of all the units they lost, that's the only one that still sticks around. So it's kind of like, oh, okay. But that is because they cannot keep up, because they obviously don't have a jump pack. So it makes sense, right? Means they're not going to be leading Sangard, which it's a shame, but it helps define the role of the Sangard, which is very much an elite bodyguard-esque unit. They're supposed to be the best of the chapter, and hopefully that reflects it in their data sheet. So they've gained a 4-up invuln. That was my biggest complaint with them in multiple editions, was that they died like a sack of shit as soon as someone got onto them. They're now 3 wounds. They've lost access to plasma pistols and power fists, but they have gained the Incommon Spear, which has lance, so on the charge it's +1 to wound, which I think is a nice trade-off. I think I prefer a power fist, but beggars can't be choosers. And the blade, the Incommon blade, has become strength 6, AP -3, which is spicy. Optional war gear, obviously everyone takes the war gear because why wouldn't you, is +1 OC to models OC, which is very useful. It means they become OC2. If you're using a unit 6, that's a big brick of 12 OC, maybe with a character that has a 4-up in 1 and 3 wounds. It's not quite Deathwing Knights level of chewy, but it's going to be a problem for people. And more importantly, unlike Deathwing Knights, they move 12 inches. They're jump pack guys. They are 40mm bases, similar sort of thing. So the heirs of Ezekalon has changed that it's now, while a character model leading this unit, -1 to the wound roll. So it was Warlord, it's now character. So it's helpful. So it used to be frustrating that you always had to you could only benefit from it if it was your Warlord, which meant only one unit could be benefiting from it. Maybe there's not the need for more than one unit, but I have a funny feeling we're going to see 2 or 3 units of these in lists, points dependent. But we shall see. Right, so Death Company Marines with bolt rifles. So these are essentially intercessors painted black that have visions of heresy. So this is an interesting ability. So once per turn, they can be targeted by Fire Overwatch or the Heroic Intervention Stratagem for 0 CP. Whilst resolving those, you can re-roll your Overwatch, or you can re-roll charges for the Heroic Intervention. So with the changes in the last data slate of how free strats were done, they could only be free if they were named. This names both, which is really kind of cool. So you get this flexibility that they have Overwatch. It's alright Overwatch. It's nothing amazing. But full rerolls on Overwatch means you're going to get a good couple of hits, hopefully. So depending on the size of the unit. Heroic Intervention. These guys have access to all of the fancy weapons still. So the Sergeant can have a Power Fist or a Thunderhammer, and they can have 1 in 5 can be an Eviscerator. So there is some combat to them. I just don't know if you care for them to be charging, but these must, at some point in the game, it may be useful. So more importantly, we've got the Assault Intercessor version. So this is the Death Company Marines. So this is where the Firstborn have been finally wiped out. They are now Tacticus Marines. So no rhinos. Boo hoo. It's a shame because I feel like the rhinos getting less and less useful in a standard Space Marine army. Almost like they're trying to encourage us not to. So at the moment I feel very interested in Impulsors, the Repulsor, Land Raiders. It's interesting, the Land Raider gets a lot of attention still, but they just seem to leave the Rhino just to suffer, but it's fine. So these guys have got the Black Rage, so they reroll the hits, and they can only fall back or have OC if they're within 12 of a Chaplain, and very much they've got the loadout of normal Assault Intercessors, which means they have access to a leader having a special weapon and a special pistol. You can have 1 in 5 have an Eviscerator. That's the new thing that's added to their new upgrade sprue, which is very nice. Unfortunately, it is just one, and so they're all going to have the same pose, but you're just going to have to do something different with your models, perhaps, to make them look interesting. But yeah, I think you'll often find people kind of want to use these to save points, but they'll probably try to squeeze in these guys instead, which are the same guys, but with jump packs. So they've still got the reroll to charges for the jump pack guys, which is really nice. They've got the Black Rage, so anything Death Company essentially has this, where they get to reroll hits, and the Chaplain, meaning they have to be within 12 of the Chaplain for the fallback and have the OC. And then very much they've got the jump pack intercessors, loadout for all their weapons, including the Eviscerator added in. So very, very much like they've lost, compared to the normal Assault Intercessors with jump pack, they've lost the Hammer of Wrath, which I thought they would, but they've gained the rerolls. So it feels a trade-off. I still feel like they've got different jobs. A big brick of these led by a Chaplain or near a Chaplain, smash into stuff. It's a great way of killing some screens, or jumping over screens, killing them with the shooting and a grenade, and then charging something else. There's some options. So it feels interesting. It feels very mobile, and I'm very interested to see how they play it on the table. Right. So we may have lost many a dreadnought, but we have gained a Death Company dreadnought. But what do you say? That's the same dreadnought? No, it's not. So instead of having the little box dreadnought, we have gained a Brutalis dreadnought. Where it differs is its Deadly Demise D3. It's got the Black Rage ability, so essentially the whole thing before reroll to hit, have to have a chaplain to fall back, or have OC, and the OC4. So having OC can be really impactful in a game with these guys. And then this is the interesting one, is their Frenzied Reprisal, which was like the kind of keep fighting thing that just didn't quite work, has been replaced by Driven by Fury, which is in your opponent's shooting phase, each time an enemy is shot, if this model is hit by one or more of those attacks, you can make a Driven by Fury move. So essentially it's a surge move. So you roll a d6, add 2 to the roll. This model moves the number of inches. Has to move as close as possible to the closest enemy unit, not model. You cannot do the move if you're battle shocked or in engagement range, and you can only do 1 per phase. So it's not abusable. I'm glad they've spotted that, because imagine that if someone went, I'm shooting it, don't quite kill it, and then it keeps going, and then it just gets itself in the way. It doesn't say you can't finish in engagement range. I'm not sure if you can or not. That'd be interesting. Let me know in the comments. With all the other surges, does it state it? Because this one doesn't. So it'll be interesting to find out, I guess. Right, and then the Bold Predator. So this has just been more of a quality of life thing. It used to be that if you advanced, the Flamestorm would gain assault, only if it shot infantry. So it was very much you had to be in the right situation at the right time to benefit from the ability. Now it's just got assault. Perfect. And then you can re-roll your advance rolls with it. So it's a tank that wants to go forward and just smash into things while shooting it. So it makes sense. I don't necessarily think you're going to be tank shocking with it particularly, but it'll do something, right? If needs must. And then we're going to go through. This is very much like at the end of the Oscars. We're just going to run through all the lost and the gone. So unfortunately, brother Corbolo, who's been there since, I think it was in 2nd edition that model came out. So he is the Chief Apothecary. He's gone. He's gone for now. I still think he's there in the lore. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think he's gone. Unlike Captain Tycho. So Captain Tycho was one of the first named characters they produced. He was in a White Dwarf battle report. I believe it's the same one where Andy Chambers brought Gazgul for the first time, or was it Mr. Wood? I can never remember. But either way, it was when they had the first kit bashed captain, who was Captain Tycho, against Gazgul, who was a kit bash model as well, and they butted heads, and it was quite a long time ago. That was during 2nd edition. So unfortunately that means Captain Tycho and Tycho the Lost are gone now. Very much clearing out all the old metal into resin, fine cast kind of characters, getting rid of them. As a result, as well, Gabriel Seth is gone. And then because the Death Company Dreadnought has gone, or been upgraded, it's gone swole, we've lost the Furioso Dreadnought and the Librarian Dreadnought, which was a choice piece. I found it fascinating the way it was teleporting stuff around at the beginning of the edition. It was very frustrating. And then obviously the big one for me is the Sanguinary Priest with a jump pack. So a very useful piece, but I can see people moving on quite quickly because there's so many cool options in the book. I don't think you're going to struggle. Right. So what is next? So apart from me flip-flopping between this and Dark Angels, what is next? So my goal here is as soon as we get some points, I'll start doing some detachment reviews, because I want to go through the review process very much like how I did with Ed on Cracking the Codex. So we'll kind of break it all down, look at the context of what a thing could be used with and what these abilities or stratagems could be utilised with, and then build a list around it. And then explain the thought process behind that. Because I think that's much more useful than me going, well, if I rely on the points as they are now, or based in the back of the book, which may or may not be right, and then that just makes a video that just isn't that useful to you guys. Because the minute they release the points updates, it could be right, it could be wrong. I don't know. And then I'm going to start looking at some of the event results. Again, this needs to be when the book's out. So we're in that weird limbo. So almost like we're waiting for the book to cross the Rubicon Primaris, but it's not quite there yet. So yeah, so points on launch, that's all we want. And so thank you guys for tuning in. Let me know what you thought. Obviously this is the first of its kind for me. It's quite an uncomfortable thing for me because I've never done a video that's not been kind of centered around something green. So it's not orcs, it's not dark angels, but it's fascinating stuff to me because you've got this kind of layer across the Space Marines that makes them play in a very different way. So if you are a Space Marine player that's got your own custom chapter, there's nothing stopping you going, I'll play some Blood Angels this week. And why shouldn't you? So yeah, until next time, thank you. Obviously, if you enjoyed the video, hit like below. Subscribe if you can on the channel because it does really help us. And if you drop me a comment below, even if it's just saying I liked it, I didn't like it, or what you'd like me to do differently, or just say something nice. I don't know. Be nice for once in the world, right, guys? And catch you next time.